Hey, hi friends, very good morning to everyone. Today we are going to see some data card related scenarios, the problems what we generally face in real time. So one such scenario is, let's assume a situation that I have a primary database and a standby database. And we know in max performance mode, the archives of the primary database will be copied onto the standby database, and then those archives will be applied by the MRP process. Now take a situation that there are some archives that were not copied from the primary database to the standby database due to some reason, and also it happened that the archives which are not copied to the standby database, those archives got deleted by the archive backup job. So which means those archives are no more available in the primary database, and you cannot copy them and apply them on the standby database. So if you have any such situation, how you are going to recover or how you are going to make your standby database in sync with the primary database is what we are trying to look out for here. And because here we don't get such kind of situation, manually, we are creating a gap between the primary database and the standby database, and then we are going to see how we are going to recover the things. So what I am doing as the first step is I'm going to disable the service. So usually if you remember here we will be writing down the service name of the standby database. But instead of that, to create a gap between the primary database and standby database, I'm just using this command. So service equals to no service. So it will fail to recognize, and your archive logs will not be copied onto the standby server. So let me execute this command first on the primary database. So again, I have taken the same thing, like machine 1 with black color screen represents the primary database, and machine 2 with white color background represents the standby database. So as of now, you can see both standby and primary are in sync. So here also have the sequence number of 30, and here also I have the sequence number of 30. So now I'm executing this command, which is going to stop the archive copy to the standby database. And I'm performing some log switches in order to generate some archives. So now if you look at the sequence number on the primary database is 33, whereas the sequence number on the standby stopped at 31 itself. So let me perform some more log switches. So here it became 36 on the primary, but on the standby you can see still it is at 31 because the archives are not copying as we changed the service name over there. So now we are going to take the current SCN of the database of both the primary database as well as the standby database, and we need to record that value over here. So I'm just making a record of that, as well as I'm executing this on the standby, and I'm making a record of that one as well. So if you look at now, as you can see, the SCN number in the standby database is less than the SCN number what is there in the primary database because of the archive log gap. So now it is our responsibility to sync the standby database with the primary database, and this we are going to do with the help of Arman incremental backup. So the steps are pretty simple, not much complicated things are there. So first thing is we are going to cancel the MRP on the standby site. So now we stop the MRP. Now on the primary database, you need to take the incremental backup. And when you are taking incremental backup, you need to specify from which SCN you need to take the backup. So what is that SCN? The SCN here what you need to give is the standby SCN number, because standby SCN number is at lower level. And give some naming convention here. I'm taking backup into U03 location, and I'm just giving percentage %u so that randomly Harman will generate some name to that. And extension, either I can take .rmb or .bkp, whatever it is. So let me execute this command on the primary. So here I have given where you need to execute that command. So first I'm connecting to Harman prompt. So done, the backup has been completed. So now you are going to create the standby control file, because there is a gap between the SCN number. We need to recreate the control file on the standby side, and for that we are going to use this one. So we can execute the commands in the Harman prompt itself. So I'm just doing that here. So the next step is copy the backup whatever you have and the standby control file to the standby server. So I have the backup files located in U03. So these two are the backup files, and this is the standby control file. So I'm copying all of them to the other server. Either you can copy into the same location, I mean same mount point if you have, or you can copy to a different mount point as well. Done. All the three files have been copied. So next, on the standby side, you need to first take the name of the control file. And then shut down the standby database. And go to the location where the files have been copied, that is in U03. And you need to copy the control file So you need to copy the latest control file, whatever you have copied from the primary database, to the standby side control file. So basically you are going to replace the old control file with the latest one, and then you are going to start the database in bound state, and to recognize the files you are going to use a command catalog start with. Then you are going to provide the location of the files where it have been there. If it prompts you yes or no, you can just say yes. It may throw some errors, but it's okay. You can just ignore that one. And then you are going to run this command, which is actually going to do the work for you. So you need to say recover database no redo. So whatever the backup that you have copied, with the help of that backup piece, the recovery will be done. And now we can check the sequence number, and you can see here the sequence number is 36, which is same exactly as your primary database. Of course, one step it has incremented here, but it was same over here. So again, to resume back the actual things, we are going to again change the things over here. I'm setting it back to the standby database service name, so that again the archive shipping and all will start. And on the standby side, I am starting the MRP process as well. And again, to check the sync, I am just using this select query. Now you can see, because we are using the correct standby service name, it has been processed, and it went to that sequence. So that is how we are going to do the recovery if at all you have a gap between the primary database and the standby database. And this will be a very important interview question as well. So in interviews, definitely they will ask you how you are going to resolve the gap between the primary database and standby database. So briefly, if you can explain them the steps what we are going to do, so that would be enough. So is that clear, or anyone having any questions? Okay, so give me 2 minutes. I'm just getting a call. Then we will start off with the another scenario. Okay, so the next scenario which we are going to see is about recovering the data file if at all we lost some data file in the primary database. So normally, if you have a database and you lost the data file, generally we'll be recovering it from the backup. So here also we can do it from the backup, but instead of that, the much more faster way is to recover from the standby database, because usually the backups will go to tape drive and restoring the file from the tape will take some time. So just to save the time and do the faster recovery, we can go ahead with this recovering from the standby database. So we are taking such scenario here. So here also basically wantedly we will remove the data file on the primary, as you can see here, and then we are going to take the backup of that particular data file from in the standby database, and we will copy that backup onto the primary, and on primary we are going to just run the command in order to do the recovery. So that is what we are going to do simply here. So let us go and do the things. So first we need to execute a command, file name and the file number, whatever we had. So I am going to remove this particular data file. So sometimes it happens that the file number could be different. So on between the primary and the standby database. So here you can see for users01.dbf, file number is showing as 7 in the primary, and of course in standby also it is showing you as 7 only. So then there is no problem. But some scenarios you might see that the file number will be different on the standby database. So that's the reason you need to take this output and you need to make a note of it in this notepad. But in this scenario it is 7 only, so I'm just proceeding with that as it is, and I am removing that data file when my database is up and running in the primary. So now this file is no more available. So then on the standby, first you need to connect to Arman prompt. I'm already there in Arman, so that's okay. Then we are going to copy the data file. Sorry, we are going to take the backup of the data file. So I'm going to take as like this. So this is the file name which I want to use. So backup is done. Now you need to go to that location and do the SCP of the file. So this is the file name which we need to copy. So file has been copied. Next step, on the primary you need to connect to the Arman prompt. Then you need to first make that particular data file offline. And you need to say catalog data file copy. So this is to make R1 recognize about the data file backup. Then you are going to run this command So you need to set new name for this particular data file because the file has been copied from the standby, and you are going to restore the data file. Then you are going to recover the data file, and finally you are going to make the data file online. So that's how you are going to do the recovery if at all you face some scenario like the file has been deleted in the primary. So any questions over here? Okay, so let's move on to the next one, that is configuring the data guard broker. So as we discussed earlier, data guard broker is a utility or a tool which will help you to manage both the primary and the standby databases very easily, and switchover and failover activities are also has been what you say simplified over here. So for that we are going to go ahead and configure that one. So we need to unset some parameters and we need to set some new parameters when it comes to configuring the data guard broker. So that is what initially we are going to do, and then we need to add some entries to the listener on both the primary side and the standby side, and then we need to execute some commands over here. So let us go ahead and do this. So first on the primary database we need to unset the value of logged archive destination 2. Earlier this value is pointed to the standby service name. Now you need to disable that one. And to make Oracle know that we are going to use data guard broker from now onwards, we are going to set a parameter dg broker start equals to true. By default it will be in false state, so we need to set that to true. And on the standby side we need to see if we at all we are using sp file or p file. If it is p file, then we need to change that to sp file because data guard broker works with sp file only. Now you can see my standby is not using sp file, so I'm going to create one. And after creating to make my standby database in effect with the sp file, we need to restart the standby database. So first I'm cancelling the mrp process, then shutting down the database. Then starting in no mount state, and to confirm you can run this. Now you can see it is using sp file, and here also we need to set some parameters. We need to unset this log archive dist2. We need to start the data guard broker service here as well, and some other parameters like unique name and data guard sync latency. So this data guard sync latency parameter is basically going to tell how much time the standby database need to wait before syncing with the primary database. So obviously we don't want any time gap, so that is where we are giving the value as 0. Suppose if you have given the value as 30, it means that 30 seconds. So let's say your primary database is having the archive sequence number of 40. Then after 30 seconds only, that archive will be in sync with the standby database. So wantedly, you are creating a gap between the primary database and the standby database. So you may get a doubt like why we need to have such kind of latency in place. There are some scenarios wherein you don't want the standby database to be immediately in sync with the primary database. So in such cases, this is going to help you. To give you an example, once what happened is in one of our environments, we got an block corruption in primary database. And whenever there is a block corruption in the primary database, the same will get reflected onto the standby. Why? Because it happens through archive log files only. So if your latency is 0, which means your standby should be in sync with primary immediately, then whenever block corruption happens in primary, within few seconds, the same thing will repeat in the standby itself. But suppose if you keep a latency of 60 seconds, I mean 1 minute, then in this 1 minute, if you recognize that there is a corruption happen in the primary database, and if you don't want that to get effect on the standby, immediately you can break uh, you can just stop the MRP process, or you can just stop the archive log transfer. So like earlier we did, so we can just stop copying the archive log files onto the standby database. So the moment you do that, automatically your standby will not be corrupted. So corruption is there in the primary, but because you realize this within 1 minute, your standby is safe. So in such case, what you can do, till you fix the problem on the primary database, you can divert all the users to connect to the standby database and they can start working on that. So once in our environment we have faced such scenarios. Luckily, we maintain 5 minutes latency, so somewhere around 300 seconds. So we maintain the latency difference. So standby will get in sync only after 5 minutes. So such kind of scenarios, this latency is going to help you. And here, if you see this parameter is using not using scope equals to both. So that's the reason to affect that value, we need to again restart the standby. So that is what I am doing it here. Then starting the standby database in mount state, and even I am starting the MRP process as well. Then we are going to set some other parameters as well. We are increasing the number of archive processes to 4. Then the lag target also, we are maintaining it as 0. So it is also similar parameter as latency. And if you are having multiple destinations, multiple archeolog destinations, so we are going to say minimum succeeded destination should be 1. So the next thing is we are going to put this entry into our listener.aura files. So both the primary as well as standby. So the first entry is for primary. So let me take that here. And when you are practicing, make sure you are using the correct Oracle home and all. So if you look at here, my Oracle home is little bit different. It is 12.2.01, but whereas here only 12.2.0 is mentioned. So those kind of things, just take care of that. So here we need to add this entry, and where we are going to add it. So just cross verify about the number of brackets that you have. So seems to be okay. So now you need to restart your listener. Okay, so let us add on the standby side as well. So here also you can stop and start the listener once. So done. So now you need to configure. So all these tips we have just changing the parameters and these things. So now we are going to run the actual steps. So we are going to connect to a prompt called DGMGRL. So that is the data guard broker or data guard manager prompt. And for that you need to compulsory have the sys user and its password. So you are going to connect like this. Then you need to execute a command, create configuration and some configuration name. As primary database is ProdDB and the connect identifier is prod.db. So when you say connect identifier, this is nothing but the TNS alias name. So configuration has been created. You are getting a message here. Now to this configuration, you are going to add standby database as the standby database. So here you can see add database standDB as connect identifier is also standDB maintained as physical, which means you are going to tell to this data guard broker that this standby database is going to be uh, you know the physical standby database from now onwards. So standby database was also added. Now you need to edit some parameters so that in future it will not create any issue. But while adding, you need to make sure the port numbers and all about it. So port number here is 1521 and this instance name is same. And then the same we need to do it here. So once we are done with this, then you are going to just run the command enable configuration. So any issues, any errors you will face at this step. While creating or while adding, you won't face any issues. When it starts enabling the configuration, let's say due to some reason it has failed, so you will get error message over here. Okay, so now we haven't received any errors. So all these steps, whatever above we followed properly, then you won't face any issues. In case you miss some step, then only it will be an issue. Okay, so then we run show configuration. Now you can see it is giving some warning message here. So it is saying multiple warnings detected for the member, and the configuration status is also warning. So actually here it should suppose to be in success. It should show you as success, but it is showing some warning message. So let us go ahead and debug what is this warning. So just like alert log file, for this data guard broker also you will be having a log file which is located in the same place as alert log file. So let's go to the location where alert log file is there. So this is your alert log file, and this is your data guard broker log file. So let us open this log file and see what exactly is the issue. Okay, so the issue it is stating is it is failing to connect to the remote database, standby database, and the error is aura12514. So that is the error that we received. So usually if you face this kind of error, especially aura12514, then you can just restart the standby database. So most of the times if you restart it will work. So let us go ahead and do that. Meanwhile, I will monitor this log with tail-f command in the primary. And here on the standby, I will restart first the standby database, and then I will restart the listener if required. I'm cancelling the MRP. So you can see here the broker log file is getting updated with that information. So let me stop and start the listener as well. Okay, so now there were no errors here after starting the standby database and after starting the MRP. So let us take one session and connect it to DGMGRL prompt and see the status. Yes, now you can see here there is no warning, and the configuration status is showing as success. So that is what I told you. If you receive any error message with respect to Vora12514, if you just restart the standby database, that would be fine. Okay, again we have received it, it's okay. So that's how we are going to configure the data guard broker. Just a moment, guys. Okay, so what is the advantage we have with this data guard broker is the activities of switchover and failover are very simple. Of course, in 12c, it has been simplified with single command, even a SQL prompt also. But even here, it is much more simpler. You can just say switch over to StanDB. That's it. Automatically, everything will be taken care, and the MRP will be starting. So even it will restart the new standby database. It will start the MRP. Everything it will do by its own. And similarly, the failover as well. So if you want to do a failover, you can run this simple command so that it will do the failover for you. Okay, just a moment. Okay, so that is what we have, and we need to discuss something about this flashback. What if flashback is enabled in the primary database, and what if it is not enabled? And then we will talk about this snapshot standby. So we'll just see those things tomorrow. So anyone having any queries? So coming back to this one, here we are still seeing the error. So what I'll do, I'll just restart my primary database as well. So which means when you are doing this broker configuration in real time, you need to take the downtime because we might face such kind of issues. Stopping the listener as well. Okay, so now let us see the configuration. Okay, so it is successful. Again, if we face issue, then we need to see, but most of the times you won't face the issue once you restart both primary and standby. So anyone having any questions before we close? Okay, so thanks everyone for joining. Let's meet tomorrow at the same time and we'll continue.